If you've been through these pains, your spiritual awakening is coming. There's something almost sacred about suffering, something ancient, profound, and undeniably transformative. We don't like to admit it, but pain is often the first real teacher we ever meet. It doesn't whisper, it screams, and in that scream, something inside you wakes up. If you've ever felt like your world was falling apart, like everything you once believed was collapsing in front of your eyes, then I want you to know something. You were never breaking down. You were breaking open. You weren't being punished. You were being prepared. Pain is not the enemy of awakening. It is the gatekeeper. There's a reason why so many people who have gone through immense suffering suddenly start seeing the world differently. They begin to question everything. They see patterns, signs, deep synchronicities. They feel things more intensely. They become aware of energies, of truths that others seem blind to. This isn't coincidence. It's the beginning of something sacred. So if you've been through heartbreak that shattered your sense of self, if you've lost someone you loved so deeply it felt like your soul was ripped apart, if you've woken up in the middle of the night with an unshakable emptiness, wondering what the point of all this is, then listen closely. You're not lost. You're being called.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
You see, spiritual awakening doesn't happen when everything is perfect. It happens when everything is chaos. When the job is gone, the relationship ends, the friends disappear, the body fails, and the mind starts asking questions that no one around you wants to answer. That's when the soul begins to stir. That's when the veils begin to lift. And that's when you, maybe for the first time, start to feel the truth rising from somewhere deep within you. A truth that says there's more to life than this. We've seen it over and over. The people who have suffered the most often become the most awakened. Why? Because pain strips away the illusions, it rips off the masks. It forces us to confront what we've been avoiding, and in that confrontation, we either fall back asleep or we begin the journey of waking up. It's not glamorous, it's not comfortable, but it is real. And real is the most powerful thing we can ever chase in this life. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like the person you used to be simply doesn't exist anymore? Like you've died in some invisible way, even though your body is still here? That feeling, that eerie sense of inner death, is one of the first signs of awakening. The ego, the false self constructed from years of conditioning, trauma, and societal programming, begins to dissolve. And in its place, something ancient and eternal begins to emerge, your true self. Not the version shaped by external expectations, but the one that has always existed beneath the noise. It's terrifying, because everything you thought you knew starts to fall apart. The beliefs, the identity, the roles you played, they stop fitting. You feel like an alien in your own life. And yet, in that alienation, there's a strange calmness, a quiet awareness, a whisper that says, "Keep going, you're close." That whisper is your soul, and it's been waiting for you to hear it. Many of us think awakening will feel like bliss, like some sudden explosion of light and joy, but in reality, it often begins with destruction. The old must die before the new can be born, and that death, it hurts, it confuses, it isolates, but it also purifies. It burns away everything that isn't real, and what's left is raw, vulnerable, and so incredibly powerful. If you've cried yourself to sleep wondering what's wrong with you, I want you to understand, nothing is wrong with you. You are shedding You are transmuting, you are transforming. The pain you feel is sacred alchemy. It's the pressure that turns coal into diamond. And you are the diamond in the making. There are moments when life will test you so deeply that you'll want to give up. You'll scream at the sky. You'll beg for answers. You'll question your very sanity. And yet, if you look closely, you'll notice something strange. During those moments, something else awakens. Something that watches the pain without being overwhelmed by it. Something that knows there's meaning even if you can't see it yet. That watcher, that's your consciousness expanding. And this expansion, it doesn't go away. Once it starts, it can't be undone. You've seen too much, felt too much, known too much. You're no longer asleep. And that's why life feels so intense. Because you're now living in a heightened state of awareness. You're feeling the weight of your past, the pain of others, the depth of existence itself. But you're also feeling your own soul, raw, real, and radiant. You might feel disconnected from the world. You might feel like you no longer belong. That's because your frequency is changing. You're no longer vibrating at the level of fear, guilt, or shame. You're beginning to rise. And as you rise, the things that once felt comforting may start to feel hollow. The conversations that once entertained you now bore you. The relationships that once defined you may now feel misaligned. In addition, your feelings of once defined you may now feel misaligned. That's not you becoming cold or distant. That's you becoming authentic. Authenticity is the cornerstone of awakening, and it starts with brutal honesty with yourself. You begin to ask the questions you once feared. Who am I? What am I doing here? What is this all for? And perhaps the most haunting question of all, is there something more? Let me ask you that now, not just as a rhetorical device, but as a real spiritual mirror. What if everything you've ever suffered was preparing you to remember who you really are? What if the pain was not the end of your story, but the beginning of a cosmic remembering? When you're in the depths of suffering, it's hard to believe any of this matters. But looking back, you start to see it. The patterns, the divine timing, the strange coincidences, the feeling that something, some intelligence far greater than us, was guiding your steps, even when you thought you were lost. That's not madness. That's awakening. And here's the wildest part. Once you start to awaken, you begin to feel a sense of mission, a purpose. Not one handed to you by society, but one whispered by your soul. You start to realize that your pain was never just for you. It was so that you could become a light for others. That your story, your scars, your journey would become a map for someone else who's just beginning theirs. So if you're hurting right now, if you feel like everything is falling apart, I want you to know, this is not your end. This is your beginning. The pain is real, the darkness is deep, but the light that's coming, it's even deeper. You are not alone. You are not broken. You are awakening. The dark night of the soul is the universe calling your name. There comes a point in every awakening where the silence feels deafening. The world around you hasn't changed, but something in you has. You walk through the same streets, talk to the same people, go through the same motions, but you're no longer the same. It's as if your soul has stepped out of your body and is watching you, wondering how you ever believed this was all there was. This is the dark night of the soul. It doesn't announce itself. It arrives quietly, cloaked in despair, in numbness, in the haunting feeling that nothing makes sense anymore, and maybe never did. We often think of spiritual awakening as a moment of bliss, but the dark night is where the real work begins. This is when the universe strips you of everything that isn't real, your attachments, your illusions, your false identities, until all that remains is who you truly are. And that process? It's messy, it's painful, it's lonely, but it is also divine, because in the absence of everything you thought you needed, you discover the only thing that ever mattered, your essence. Have you ever stared at the ceiling at 3 a.m., feeling like your soul is screaming, but your mouth is silent? That unexplainable ache inside you, that longing for something you can't name, that's the universe whispering, "Come home." Not home as in a place, but home as in your truth, home as in your soul's origin. The dark night is not a punishment, it's a sacred initiation. It's the soul's cry to remember itself. During this phase, you may feel like you're losing your mind, and in a way you are, but only the mind that was conditioned by fear, by shame, by scarcity, the mind that was programmed to survive, not to thrive. As that old identity dissolves, there's a terrifying emptiness, but in that emptiness lies infinite possibility. You are being emptied so you can be filled with truth. People around you may not understand. They'll tell you to snap out of it, to get over it, to be yourself again, not realizing that the self you once were no longer exists. And how could it? Once you've tasted even a glimpse of your soul, the ego becomes unbearable. The masks become suffocating. You can no longer pretend. And you shouldn't. This is where many give up. They retreat into distraction, into addiction, into the comfort of the known. But if you can sit with the discomfort, if you can allow the darkness to do its work without running from it, you will emerge with a clarity that no book, no guru, and no religion could ever give you. You will see through the lies. You will feel your own power, and you will remember you are not here to fit in, you are here to awaken. Let me ask you something that goes deeper than logic. What if your suffering is not random? What if every heartbreak, every betrayal, every moment you thought you were abandoned was the universe lovingly breaking your illusion of separation? What if the darkness wasn't here to destroy you, but to reveal the light that can never be taken from you? The dark night asks you to let go of everything you thought you were. It asks you to sit in the void, to face your shadows, to embrace your wounds. Why? Because your wounds are where the light enters. Your shadows are not your enemy, they are your teachers. They show you where you've forgotten your wholeness. They point to the parts of you still waiting to be loved. And when you begin to love those parts, the broken, the ashamed, the afraid, you start to reclaim your power. Not the power of control or dominance, but the power of presence, the power of truth, the power of unconditional love. And in that moment you realize something profound. The dark night was never about destroying you, it was about awakening the divine within you. This is the moment when the shift happens. Not all at once, but gradually. The fog begins to lift, the pain starts to soften. The silence no longer feels empty, it feels sacred. You begin to hear your intuition again. You feel guided, even if you don't know where. You trust, not because everything is certain, but because you've surrendered the need for certainty. And then the most unexpected thing happens. You feel gratitude, not in a surface level, Instagram quote kind of way, but in your bones. Gratitude for the pain, gratitude for the breaking, gratitude for the night because it showed you the stars. You realize that the universe didn't abandon you. It was remaking you. You weren't being punished. You were being purified. You are not broken. You are awakening. And this dark night, it's not your end. It is your rebirth. You are being called to something greater than you can imagine. The question is, will you answer? You're not broken. You're breaking through dimensions. There's a moment in every awakening where what once felt like a breakdown begins to feel like a breakthrough. It's subtle, quiet, but unmistakable. The very pain that once made you question your existence now becomes the doorway to a deeper dimension of life. You realize you haven't been losing your mind, you've been shedding it. The identity you once clung to, the roles you played, the fears you inherited, they begin to dissolve, and something ancient awakens in their place. A knowing, a remembering, a presence that feels eternal, and you begin to see you are not just healing, you are evolving. When you step into this phase, reality itself begins to shimmer. You start noticing things you once overlooked. The way the wind moves through trees feels like a message. The way your heart reacts to certain people, places, or songs feels like guidance. You begin to feel life, not just think about it. You're no longer living in your head, you're living in your field. And that field, that energetic presence, is a doorway to other dimensions, realms of intuition, synchronicity, connection, and deep inner guidance. This is not fantasy, this is frequency. You are learning to live from your soul's vibration instead of your programmed mind. And it's not always easy, because now you can hear the quiet lies you used to tell yourself, the ones that said, "I'm not enough," or "This is just how life is." They no longer resonate. They feel like static in a world that's becoming more crystalline. You begin to sense that your consciousness isn't confined to this body, this name, this story. You begin to feel the vastness of who you really are. And with that awareness comes responsibility. You can no longer pretend. You can no longer numb out. You can no longer betray your truth just to keep others comfortable. It's in this stage that many begin to feel a strange duality. On one hand, you feel more connected to everything, to nature, to people, to the cosmos. On the other, you feel increasingly distant from the world you once knew. The conversations feel shallow, the distractions feel heavy. The noise of the matrix, the endless chase for status, validation, and consumption begins to nauseate your spirit. You're not becoming antisocial, you're becoming aligned. You're tuning into a frequency that only truth can access. Have you noticed how time feels different now? Some days stretch like lifetimes, others vanish in the blink of an eye. That's not your imagination. As your consciousness expands, your experience of time begins to shift. You start to understand that time is not as linear as we've been told. It bends, it folds, it dances. And just like time, your soul is not linear either. You begin to feel echoes of other lives, other versions of yourself, other timelines you may have walked, and you start to remember. You are a multi-dimensional being. You have lived before, you will live again. But this life, this moment, is sacred. Because here, now, you are waking up. And as you wake up, you begin to sense the presence of something greater guiding you. You might call it God, the universe, source, higher self. The label doesn't matter. What matters is the feeling. That quiet nudge in your chest, that whisper in your heart, that pull towards something more meaningful. It's not just a feeling, it's a frequency, and it's calling you home. You start to realize that the people who hurt you were also part of your awakening, not to justify the pain, but to understand it. Your soul chose certain experiences, not because it wanted to suffer, but because it wanted to grow. The heartbreaks, the betrayals, the losses, they cracked your heart open so your soul could finally speak. And now that you're listening, everything changes. You become more sensitive, more intuitive, more empathic. You feel things before they happen. You sense the energy behind words. You start to understand that we are not separate beings. We are waves in the same cosmic ocean. And in that realization, judgment fades, forgiveness arises, compassion becomes your default, not out of weakness, but out of wisdom, because you've seen the game, you've seen the illusion, and you're not here to play it anymore, you're here to transcend it. You begin to live in alignment, not because it's trendy, but because anything else feels like self-betrayal. You say no to what drains you. You say yes to what lights you up. You stop explaining yourself. You stop chasing what's not meant for you, and you start magnetizing what your soul truly desires: peace, purpose, presence, connection, freedom, not from the outside world, but from within. And then something miraculous happens. You realize that the awakening wasn't just for you. It was for everyone you will ever touch. Your healing becomes a ripple. Your truth becomes a permission slip. Your light becomes a lighthouse for those still lost in the fog. And without even trying, you become a vessel for awakening in others. Not by preaching, but by being. By embodying the truth so deeply that others remember their own. So if you're still moving through the fire, if you're still feeling the ache of the unknown, I want you to remember this: you are not broken. You are breaking through the walls of illusion, through the layers of conditioning, through the veils of fear. And on the other side, there is a version of you so powerful, so radiant, so free, that even the stars will recognize your light. You didn't come here to play small. You didn't come here to repeat cycles. You came here to wake up and to help others do the same. And the fact that you're still here, still breathing, still searching, means you're already doing it. You are the awakening. You are the miracle. You are the message. Your soul signed up for this before you were born. There is a truth that lives beyond the mind, beyond intellect, beyond the conditioning we've inherited. It's a truth that the soul remembers, even when the body forgets. And that truth is this: you chose this, not as punishment, not as karma in the way most people misunderstand it, but as a sacred contract. Before you were born, you sat with your own spirit and said, "Yes, I will go. I will forget who I am so I can remember again. I will walk through the fire so I can embody light. I will descend into the illusion, not to be consumed by it, but to break it open from the inside out." This isn't just poetic language, it's a deep spiritual reality. Your soul is not a victim of circumstance. It is a conscious participant in a divine play. All the pain, all the confusion, all the moments where you felt lost beyond repair, they were not detours. They were part of the map. You see, awakening doesn't happen in spite of your trauma, it happens because of it. The soul uses the very moments that shattered you as portals to higher consciousness, and suddenly, what once looked like chaos begins to feel like orchestration. Have you ever felt like certain people were placed in your life with surgical precision? Like their presence, no matter how brief or painful, triggered something ancient in you? That's because soul contracts are real. Some people came into your life not to love you forever, but to activate you, to challenge you, to break you just enough so that you'd finally look inward. They were mirrors, reflecting back the parts of you still waiting to be healed, and when you begin to see that, forgiveness becomes a natural byproduct, not because what they did was okay, but because you understand it through a cosmic lens. This life you are living is not random, it's a carefully chosen curriculum. Your pain was not an accident, it was a teacher. Your longing was not a flaw, it was a compass. Your sensitivity is not a weakness, it's your superpower. You are not here by mistake, you are here on assignment. And the more you awaken, the more that assignment becomes clear. You didn't come to blend in, you came to disrupt, to remember, to embody a level of truth and love that this world desperately needs. And that's why it's been so hard, because breaking free from the collective sleep is no small task. The programming runs deep, the fear is loud, the matrix is seductive, but your soul is louder. Your soul remembers the promise you made, that you would not forget who you are, that you would live awake, even if it meant walking alone for a while, that you would carry the light even when all around you is dark, that you would love even when you had every reason to close your heart. You are not just healing your life, you are healing generations of pain. You are breaking chains that have bound your lineage for centuries. You are rewriting the story not only for yourself, but for those who will come after you. And that kind of work? It's not easy. It's soul work. It's warrior work. And yet, here you are, still showing up, still feeling, still listening to the quiet whispers of your heart. If you're wondering why you've always felt different, why the world has never quite made sense to you, why you crave something deeper, it's because you are different. You are a soul who came here to awaken not just for yourself, but for the collective. You are a system breaker, a frequency holder, a bridge between worlds. And every time you choose truth over comfort, love over fear, alignment over approval, you fulfill that mission. What you're going through is not an end. It's a return to yourself, to your essence, to the divine intelligence that has always lived inside you. The pain was part of the path. The confusion was part of the awakening. The darkness was part of the light. And the soul, you, knew this all along. So breathe deeply, stand tall. You've walked through fire and remembered your name. You've collapsed and still found your center. You've questioned everything and yet kept listening. That is the mark of an awakened soul. That is the path of a master in the making. You're not just surviving, you're transcending, and the world will be forever changed because you chose to remember who you are. This is not the end of your journey. It's the beginning of your embodiment. You are here, you are awake, and your soul knew all along. You were always meant to be